The story of Bartolo Longo begins in silence, a silence heavy with echoes of prayer and guilt. Once a devoted priest, he had spent years inside the sacred walls of churches, surrounded by incense, rituals, and the murmurs of souls seeking salvation. Yet beneath his cassock and the calm mask of faith, there burned a storm, one that would lead him straight into the shadows he had sworn to fight. Bartolo had always been obsessed with understanding the mystery of good and evil. His questions were dangerous, whispered in confessionals and buried under sermons. If God is light, he asked himself, why does he allow darkness to exist within his own creation? For this question, his superiors rebuked him. Do not question what was revealed, they said. But Bartolo couldn't stop. His curiosity was not rebellion, it was hunger. One night, in his small cell, the silence broke. He awoke to a suffocating darkness, so thick it felt alive. The crucifix on his wall began to glow faintly, not with holy light, but with a strange red shimmer, like metal in fire. Then he heard it, a voice that wasn't human, whispering his name, with a calmness more terrifying than screams. You wanted to see the truth, priest? Then see it. Suddenly, the world around him collapsed. The walls melted into smoke, and Bartolo found himself standing on the edge of an abyss. Beneath him, flames roared not of fire, but of memory. He saw faces, men and women twisted by regret, each consumed by the echoes of their own actions. It wasn't punishment. It was repetition. The damned were trapped inside the loops of their choices, living their worst moments over and over again. Bartolo tried to pray, but no words came. The same voice whispered, Hell is not a place, priest. It is the mind that refuses to awaken. He fell to his knees. He saw himself among them, the same doubts, the same pride. His priestly robes turned to ashes, revealing the soul beneath, trembling and afraid. Then he understood, every man carries his own heaven and hell inside his thoughts. The flames were thoughts, burning lies, obsessions, and fears. In the midst of torment, he cried, Lord, where are you? And from within the fire, a soft light appeared, not outside him, but inside. A voice, pure and simple, answered, I never left you, Bartolo. You were the one who left yourself. Then everything shattered. He awoke on the floor of his room, drenched in sweat, the air thick with the scent of smoke. The crucifix was normal again. The night was still. But something had changed forever. From that night on, Bartolo left the priesthood. He didn't reject God. He began to understand him differently. He realized that heaven and hell were states of consciousness, created and sustained by the mind. Evil was not a force that lived outside of man. It was ignorance, fear, and the refusal to love. He dedicated his life to reprogramming his mind through meditation, reflection, and acts of compassion. He taught that the true battle between good and evil is fought within, not in churches or temples, but in every thought we choose to believe. Years passed, and people began to call him mad, a heretic, a mystic. But Bartolo only smiled. He knew what they didn't, that the flames of hell he once saw had turned into light within him. He had walked through his darkness and come out the other side reborn. Before his death, he wrote one final note found beside his bed. Fire, I have seen hell, and it was my own mind. I have seen heaven, and it was the same mind once I filled it with love. And with that, Bartolo Longo, the ex-priest who reprogrammed his mind after encountering hell, closed his eyes in peace. The storm inside him had finally become still, and in that stillness, the divine whispered once more, Welcome home. Você diz. Continuer. O chat GPT diz. But death was not the end for Bartolo Longo. What he had seen in life was only a glimpse of something far greater, something beyond the limits of flesh, beyond faith, beyond words. When his final breath left his body, he did not fall into darkness. Instead, he awoke in a sea of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was made of silence, but it was alive, every vibration carrying the voice of creation itself. He stood there, barefoot on a ground that wasn't solid but felt real. In front of him rose a vast expanse, an infinite horizon of golden clouds and shadowless light. For a moment, he thought he had reached heaven. But then he heard it again, the same voice that had spoken to him in the abyss years ago. You are not in heaven, Bartolo. You are inside yourself. He turned around, and there it was, a mirror, enormous and shimmering like liquid glass. When he looked into it, he didn't see his reflection. He saw every version of himself that had ever existed. The young priest full of faith, the skeptic filled with doubt, the man lost in darkness, the seeker of truth. They were all there, staring back at him. "Who are you?" he whispered. "We are you," the reflections said together. "Every thought you've ever had, every fear, every prayer. You are both your savior and your demon." Then the mirror rippled, and from within it emerged the same flames he had seen in his vision of hell, but now they were different. They burned with a clean, white light that didn't destroy, but revealed. He stepped into them willingly this time. The fire surrounded him, entered his heart, and for the first time, he felt no pain. It was truth, raw, pure, merciful. He saw it all. Every soul in the universe, connected like sparks from the same divine flame. Heaven and hell were not two separate realms. They were the same energy, shaped by the consciousness that perceived it. The damned burned in ignorance, the blessed glowed in awareness. The fire was the same, only perception changed it. As he understood this, the fire began to dissolve, and he found himself standing in a garden, endless, serene, overflowing with color and light. Rivers of silver flowed between trees that sang softly, and beings of light moved like gentle winds. He felt no body, no boundaries, only a vast presence. Then he heard the voice again, but this time it was not outside of him. It was his own, yet infinite. "You have reprogrammed your mind. Now you understand that good and evil are not enemies. They are the two hands of creation, teaching you how to wake." Bartolo wept, but his tears turned into light. He realized that what humans called sin was simply separation, forgetting that they were one with God. And what they called salvation was simply remembrance. He asked softly, "And what is God?" The voice replied, "The mind that dreams, the heart that feels, and the soul that knows." Then everything began to fade, not into darkness, but into perfect stillness. His consciousness expanded until it filled everything, the stars, the galaxies, the thoughts of all beings. He became the silence between breaths, the warmth within love, the awareness behind every prayer. In that eternal moment, Bartolo Longo understood the final truth. Fire, the mind that creates heaven and hell, is the same mind that can return to God. To reprogram the mind is to remember who we truly are, fragments of the divine, dreaming of separation, longing to awaken. And with that realization, the ex-priest became what he had always sought, a bridge between the light and the flame, between man and eternity. No tomb holds his name. No relic bears his bones. But his truth still moves like a whisper through time, reaching every soul ready to hear. Latin Cross, you do not need to escape hell. You only need to stop believing it is real. And somewhere beyond time and space, Bartolo Longo smiled, finally free, finally home, finally one with the infinite light he had spent a lifetime searching for. O chat GPTDs. And as Bartolo drifted deeper into that boundless light, something remarkable began to happen. The light itself began to speak through him. Not in words, but in pure knowing. Every pulse of radiance carried the essence of wisdom, flowing through his being like a river of gold. He was no longer a man, he was awareness, dissolving into the very consciousness that sustains the universe. He saw that everything, from the smallest atom to the farthest galaxy, was part of one vast mind dreaming itself into existence. Every prayer ever whispered, every act of cruelty, every tear shed in faith or despair, all of it was energy seeking to return to balance, seeking to remember the source. Bartolo understood that evil was never a creation of God. It was simply the shadow cast by minds that had forgotten their own light. The devils he once feared were echoes of human pain, given form by belief. And the angels, they were the same pain, healed. Then the universe folded before him like scroll, and he saw Earth, beautiful, wounded, radiant. Souls flickered across it like tiny candles in a storm, each one trapped in its own struggle between faith and fear. Bartolo longed to reach them, to tell them what he now knew. And so a new light emerged from him, not to return as flesh, but as inspiration. Across the centuries, artists, mystics, and wanderers began to feel his presence. A whisper guiding their thoughts, a sudden insight in meditation, a dream of fire turning into light. He was everywhere, yet unseen. In a monastery deep in Italy, a monk once wrote, "A voice came to me in prayer and said, 'Your mind is the temple of heaven and hell. Choose which to open.'" He never knew that the voice he heard was Bartolo's. In South America, a woman dying of grief suddenly felt peace and whispered, "I understand now. My pain was my teacher." In the deserts of the East, a hermit heard the wind say, "The flame you fear is your own awakening. Bartolo's essence had become the teacher beyond time, the silent guide of transformation. Yet, within the eternal stillness, he continued to explore. He passed through layers of existence, realms of thought, music, geometry, light, each one a dimension of the divine mind. He saw beings made of sound, souls that communicated in colors, angels who were not winged forms but radiant equations of harmony. He realized that even heaven evolves, creation is infinite and consciousness forever expanding. Finally, he reached a realm beyond duality, where there was no God and man, no good or evil, only oneness. A voice, vast as eternity, intimate as breath, embraced him completely. You have returned, Bartolo. You sought me in temples and scriptures, in fire and torment. Yet I was always where you least looked, inside your own mind. He bowed, though he no longer had form, and whispered into the infinite, then the journey was only to remember what I already was. The voice, the very heartbeat of existence, replied, yes, and that remembrance is the salvation of all creation. And so Bartolo Longo ceased to be an individual, and became a current in the ocean of divine thought, the stream that touches every seeker who dares to look within. Sometimes when the world falls silent enough, when you close your eyes and the noise of life fades away, you can almost hear him. A gentle whisper rising from the depth of your own consciousness. Dove, reprogram your mind with love, and even hell will turn into light. And in that whisper lives the eternal legacy of the ex-priest who walked through the abyss, faced his own darkness, and discovered that the kingdom of heaven was never elsewhere, it had always been within. And as that whisper of eternity faded into the stillness, a subtle vibration began to ripple across the dimensions, like the heartbeat of creation itself remembering its purpose. Bartolo's essence moved with that rhythm, carried beyond time, into the minds of those who were ready to awaken.